Don and Jay were standing next to an old barrel. They were deciding on a bet. You seriously gonna do it? I mean, why not? Probably because that stuff is most likely expired by now. Jesus, just look at how moldy the barrel is. What's the worst that can happen? Me getting an upset stomach? I can take it. Plus, $50 is $50. The deal is still on, right? Ugh, whatever. And just in case your stomach melts or you die of food poisoning, I'm not responsible, yeah? Yeah, whatever. Just let me get my head wrapped around this real quick. Don took a few deep breaths and opened the top of the aged barrel filled with treacle. Okay, here I go. Get that fat wallet out and get ready to pay up. He smirked at his friend and plunged his hand into the dark, viscous liquid. Victory is now mine, he said triumphantly, but soon found himself unable to pull his hand out of the barrel. I didn't think it would be this sticky. I think I feel some lumps? Suddenly, his arm was yanked into the barrel, all the way up to his shoulder. Holy hell, help me! And there's something in here! Don shouted to his friend with a mixture of panic and confusion. Jay grabbed his friend from behind and pulled back as hard as he could, but it was like trying to move a boulder. From beneath the dark pool, multiple little syrupy goblin-like creatures rose to the surface. Unable to react at all, a dozen or so of these monsters held firmly onto Don from within the barrel. The others climbed all over him. Scared, Jay pulled himself away from Don immediately. Don's scream turned into muffled cries as one of the monsters forced his mouth open and slithered down his throat. The little creatures chuckled and sank back into the treacle. Cowering on the ground, Jay called out to Don. Hey, are you okay? Instead of responding, Don's body began jerking violently, as though he was dancing completely without rhythm. Jay could see Don's veins slowly growing darker and darker. Whatever that thing was, it was clearly doing something to his blood. Feeling hopeless, Jay ran away while apologizing profusely. Don was left behind, helpless as his body is now under complete control of a foreign entity. He was completely aware of what was happening, but unable to do anything to stop it. Hello everybody, I'm TheRubber. Today we bring you SCP Foundation's Safe Class Object SCP-3077. SCP-3077, also known as Sugar Golem, consists of around 600 gallons of treacle, or a type of syrup to be specific. It is incredibly dark in color, viscous, and currently stored in cryogenically frozen barrels by the Foundation. If 3077 is not cryogenically frozen, the substance will become extremely active and break off into multiple copies of black sugar golems. These creatures are given the designation SCP-3077-1. 3077-1 instances typically possess orifices on the head to approximate facial features. However, the size, shape, position, and number of these orifices vary between instances. They are often deformed in some manner. Common deformities include collapsed skulls and disproportionate body parts, with nearly a third of all instances being conjoined at various points of the body. They are incredibly weak, as anyone is capable of fending off attacks from 3077-1 by simply pushing or kicking their little bodies aside without much trouble. However, their sheer numbers make up for their weakness. They are also incredibly durable. After being violently destroyed, they can reconstitute themselves easily while producing multiple new copies. They will then continue attacking relentlessly until their victim tires out. Then 3077-1's disturbing routine begins. An instance of 3077-1 will shove its way down its victim's throat, extending dark treacle tendrils into the veins throughout the victim's head and body as it overrides the nervous system of its new host. The host is completely aware and conscious during the entire agonizing process while having no control over their body. The hosts are given the designation 3077-2. Instances of 3077-2 will then seek out humans. Once it has done so, it will begin a terrible show that consists of singing and dancing. This will continue until there is no longer any human audience present or until the host expires. After receiving an anonymous phone call indicating the presence of Herman Fuller's circus of the disquieting in Indiana, the Foundation dispatched MTF Kappa 14 to investigate. The task force arrived at the scene, only to find piles of dead bodies burnt to crisps. A pile of charred bodies. At a freaking circus. Christ, why can't our missions ever be remotely normal? This is why we get paid big bucks, Ramirez. Besides, with everyone dead, we can sweep the place to find our target or any survivors without much issue. Ugh. Wait a second, that body just moved. The two agents ran to a nearby tent where a woman was perched up against it. She was bound, gagged, and blindfolded. The agents quickly released her. She grabbed her head slowly and complained of a headache. She was designated as POI 3077-1. Miss, are you all right? Do you know what happened here? Lieutenant Ramirez looked back at the giant pile of bodies before turning back to the battered woman. She appeared distant and indifferent towards the commander's questions and the devastation around her. Did you do all this? You did, didn't you? I'm sorry, sweetheart, but you're gonna pay for this. The lieutenant cocked his pistol and aimed it at the woman. Commander Rice stepped in immediately to stop him. Stand down, Lieutenant. We don't do summary executions here, especially when we're not even sure if she's done anything yet. You didn't kill these people, right? The lieutenant flipped the gun's safety back on and holstered it reluctantly. Rye turned towards the woman and asked, still, the question remains, did you kill these people? Who are you and what were you doing here? POI 3077-1 calmly confessed that she worked for the circus as a magical candy maker. She had proposed an idea to her higher-ups, namely Icky the Magic Clown and Manny, the man with the upside-down face. She told them her idea of creating a bunch of little golems made of treacle. These jolly little creatures would dance and sing and entertain crowds. The idea was well received, and so resources were put into the act. She succeeded in creating the golems. But as soon as they were revealed to the crowd, they were found to be too deformed to sing or dance. A failed creation too broken to live up to their creator's divine visions. Icky then decided to have them perform acrobatics and gymnastic routines instead, since they were small and slippery. They even thought of incorporating dark slapstick humor in their performances, since the golems could be torn apart and put back together easily. Although it had strayed from her original vision, POI 3077-1 followed through. Everything progressed smoothly afterwards. Eventually, it was the opening night. The golems were rebranded and introduced as Saccharina Sweets Sensationally Sublime Sugar Babies. The golems stepped onto the stage, spotlight on them, but they wouldn't perform. They just sat there, staring at the audience. Then all hell broke loose. They scattered into the crowd. Bearing their evil grins, they leapt into the audience's mouths and forced themselves down their throats. Within seconds, these people were being controlled from the inside like meat puppets. No, this wasn't what I had in mind. No! The creator of the golems fell to her knees, trembling in fear. The ones who broke free of the golems' clutches fled in terror. And the ones that were conquered, well, they stayed and used their newfound bodies to sing and dance for their creator, just like she had always wanted them to. Facing the chaos in front of her, Icky grew furious. In a fit of rage, she stormed towards POI 3077-1 and lifted her up by the throat, branding her a traitor. She fainted from Icky's strong grip shortly after. POI 3077-1 later woke up to a massive headache and a monsterized crowd. When they noticed their creator had risen, the golems croaked with joy and began singing and dancing for her. They seemed to be asking her, "Are you proud of us? Isn't this what you wanted us to do? Look, we're singing and dancing for you." She couldn't find her words. Her limbs felt like they were being weighted down with layers of molasses. She was frozen in fear. She could see the eyes of the people there. She could tell they wanted it to end. They wanted to die. This is hell, she thought. To be taken against your will, to be forced to sing and dance until your body breaks, to live as a puppet. The people in front of her, controlled by her very own twisted creations, sang and danced as their faces screamed agony. These are not the faces I wanted to see. Tears began rolling down her cheeks as she grew more determined. I'll burn them. I'll burn them all. And so the circus burned down along with the audience. Their screams grew as loud as the intense crackling of the raging flames until gradually dying down. What remained of the golems were locked away in some old barrels. Even now, as she stands amidst the burnt ruins of the circus, She can still hear her golem's fleeting voices asking her, "Why, Mommy, why? Are you not happy? Are you not satisfied? We sang and danced for you, Mommy. Please don't lock us away." She had since developed a fear of the smell of burnt sugar. The boys were playing soccer in the middle of the dirt road when one of them spotted a pink piñata in front of a nearby house that resembled something between a horse and a goat. As kids, they didn't think anything of it and thought they were lucky to find some candy or maybe even money inside of it. Yet, one of the boys, Will, felt like something was off about it and didn't approach it. His friend, Ken, on the other hand, ran over to it, but when he got within a few feet of it, he froze. He called out to Will, yelling that he couldn't move before he couldn't even talk a few seconds later. Frightened, Will took a step back, unwilling to even help his friend. The piñata started walking towards Ken, its cartoonish eyes analyzing him as it approached. Will knew he should have ran, but yet he was too afraid to move. That piñata then headbutted Ken in the stomach, over and over and over again, thrashing into him. Will could faintly hear Ken's bones cracking, yet his expression remained completely frozen in fear. Then, candy spurted out from Ken's body. Hundreds of pieces littered the ground as the demonic toy turned its eyes towards Will. He ran away and never looked back. No body was ever found. Hello everybody, I'm TheRubber. Today, we bring you a SCP Foundation Euclid Class Object SCP-956. SCP-956, also known as Childbreaker, appears to be an extremely colorful piñata resembling a four-legged animal that is a cross between various species. However, after initial testing, 956 is anything but a papier-mâché toy meant to be broken. Foundation researchers determined that 956 was actually composed of glue, fur from an unknown creature, and most disturbingly, human tissue. Contrary to its appearance, 956 is completely immune to any type of blunt force trauma and crushing. Regardless of the amount of weight or force behind it, 956's physical integrity will not falter, and in some cases, it has managed to damage the vices used in attempts to crush it. 956 appears to only be in a docile state, waiting, until children under the age of 12 get within around 15 feet of it. Upon reaching the range of activation for 956, the child will become unable to move after around 7 to 28 seconds, becoming paralyzed in the last stance that they held. While this does not kill the victim, they cannot move or speak, but are able to see and feel, as suggested by incredibly fearful and rapid eye movements. After a few more seconds, 956 will then begin to inflict sudden and incredible blunt force trauma on its victim, directed at their torsos until they break in half or are opened up. Once they are, candy of an unknown kind will burst out from inside the victims, ranging from 23 to 1,323 pieces. These pieces of candy are thus designated as SCP-956-1. If the victim is somehow managed to be moved approximately 36 feet away from 956 successfully, they will be spared from being cracked open. Unfortunately, they will still be frozen in place, and no victims have ever been recorded as recovering from that state. These victims usually die rather shortly after this occurs, due to severe dehydration of the body and their organs. When Foundation researchers examined the corpses of such victims, they saw that due to the intense dehydration, the bodies became brittle, like that of a piñata. Furthermore, due to this research, the Foundation was able to determine where the human tissue came from in relation to 956. Pieces of human tissue were seen to be halfway converted into pieces of the unknown candy from inside the organs of its victims. The longer they stayed within the range of 956, the more conversion of tissue to candy took place. Anyone over the age of 12 who consumed 956-1 underwent seizures in mere minutes, and a small percentage suffered from heart attacks. Around only a third of those survived the ordeal. On the other hand, if a child under the age of 12 consumes the candy, they will stand up straight with their arms stretched outward, and the following will occur in the following sequence. First, they experience rapid hair loss. Then, paper mache will sprout from the skin. And finally, an extremely painful restructuring of their bone and muscles. After an agonizing 9 minutes, the transformation will be completed, and the victim will then have become another instance of 956. None have survived the transformation, nor has anyone have had the transformation prevented once 956-1 has been consumed by a child under 12. Outside of testing, 956 has begun showing capabilities of locomotion, as observed in a security feed which shown that 956 was wandering around its cell, tracing the perimeter of the room. It did this for about an hour before staring at a spot on the wall. Review of the footage has shown that it was facing this wall after returning to docile state during previous tests. Dr. N, the researcher responsible for 956, realized a horrifying implication. After reviewing the footage, he ordered his assistant to keep watching over the live feed of 956's containment. "Keep your eyes on that thing. If it moves, call me immediately." He ejected the recording tape and hurried towards the site director's office. "Hello and good morning, sir. Forgive the lack of formality, but please allow me to get right to the point with 956. I believe, and with good reason, that the Piñata should have its safe classification removed and have it be replaced with Euclid." The site director interrupted in the middle of his tea, said bewilderedly, "I would have preferred that you knock before entering next time, but for now, speak." "I think it's best that you see for yourself, sir." He handed the tape and the site director played it on his computer. "So it moves and stares at the wall. What about it?" Dr. N cleared his throat. "Sir, directly east of our current site is an elementary school. It was only about a few kilometers away. It sensed its victims and it's aiming for those kids." The site director pondered for a moment and then made a swift decision. All right. Access granted to change SCP-956's classification from safe to Euclid effective immediately. Thank you, sir. As a preventative measure, 956 will be transferred to another site that is far enough from any school or playground. It was a precaution which relieved Dr. N greatly. Good call, sir. If my boy is still studying there and falls victim to that creepy thing, Dr. N said with a forced smile on his face. What happened to your boy, if you don't mind me asking? He went missing months ago. Was playing with his best friend when it happened. Both kids went missing on the same day. Would you like to see his picture? He wasn't really interested, but he thought it would provide Dr. N some comfort, so he said yes. He shuddered when he saw the picture. His name is Will, the one on the left. He would be turning 12 in another 2 months. My condolences, Doctor. A few weeks later, after 956 was transferred to another site, no other incident has happened similarly so far. Regardless of its state of inactivity, researchers have begun routinely reviewing footage to determine if it will move and for what reason. Dr. N requested to meet the site director in his office one day. He walked into the office and threw down a folder on his desk. The site director flipped through the folder mindlessly. What's all this? A child under the age of 12 consumes the candy, they will stand up straight with their arms stretched outward, and the following will occur in the following sequence. First, they experience rapid hair loss. Then, paper mache will sprout from the skin. And finally, an extremely painful restructuring of their bone and muscles. Yeah? What about it? How the hell do we know about this? What did we do that allowed us to find out the effect of those candies on a child? The site director took off his glasses, sighed, and rubbed at his temple. Answer me! And I thought you'd never find out. It was a few years ago when we heard about the Piñata and went out to recover it. We got to the scene, but it was already too late for the other kid. Poor boy was killed by that damn Piñata. We found your boy crying beside his friend. We took him back along with the SCP and the body of his friend. We detained Will for a few days for observation and would apply amnestic before sending him back. On the day of his release, he was sitting in the waiting room while procedures were underway. He was left alone there, and for some reason, some idiot who worked there had the funny idea of having a bowl full of those cursed candies on the desk. Any child wouldn't think twice to pluck one out without supervision, and he did. At this point, the doctor was already sobbing. When we're back to the room, he was already contorting on the floor. It was the last stage before he turned. There was nothing we could have done. I'm sorry. Dr. N broke down. He took out the picture of his son and mourned at the desk. The thought of Will turning into a predatory piñata was too much for him to bear. The doctor's son was gone, left only the memories of him in his mind and the report of an anomaly acquired from his tragic death. In the small town of Joy, Alaska, there is a local urban legend about the legendary ice demon. It is believed that if one walks alone in the forest on the coldest days in winter, they will be approached by the demon and offered two gifts. The first gift is not a physical one, but rather a magical one. If this gift is selected, the person will have bestowed upon them the immunity to ice and cold. Of course, that doesn't sound amazing, but for someone living in a frigid environment, it can definitely make life a million times more bearable. The second gift is a large snowflake in crystalline appearance, around 3 inches in diameter, and does not melt no matter the temperature. More importantly, the snowflake is pure gold. Nobody knows why this snowflake is gold and still almost weightless, or why this is one of the gifts at all. Perhaps it knows of humans' greed, who knows? Dozens of children from Joy would wander the forest for hours, taking turns to see if they could find the demon and have their chance at getting a gift of their choice. After years and years of doing this, one child was lucky enough to find the demon, Avery Anderson. This little girl approached a snowman-looking imp creature that darted around in the snow. Its red eyes and button mouth watched her as it did so. Carefully, she approached the thing as it stood on its back legs and cocked its head around, inspecting her as she happily began telling it which of the gifts she wanted. Avery gasped in fright as the little button on its face popped off, revealing a large pit of a mouth filled with sharp, human-like teeth, and lunged at the girl. Her friends heard her shouting for help. They rushed towards where she was, and her cries became more desperate and frantic, until a crunching sound was heard, followed by scuttling in the snow. Finally, her friends found her, but it was already too late. There she was in the snow, in a tree, in a bush, her body parts scattered around, oozing blood as her throat was pushed inward with chunks bitten out of it. After her friends stopped crying, panicking, and vomiting, they ran home. Their parents called the police. Upon arriving at the scene, her body was gone, and all that remained of her was her blood soaked up by the snow. Urban legends are never to be trusted. Hello everybody, I'm TheRubber. Today, we bring you a SCP Foundation Euclid-class object, SCP-4230. SCP-4230, also known as It's a Christmas Miracle, is a 5-foot-tall, crudely constructed snowman that consists of dirty snow, leaves, rocks, soil, and other earthly matter. This entity can be considered the evil twin to Frosty the Snowman, minus the show tunes. 4230 does not melt, and it is immobile, giving it a very unassuming presence that one could approach without issue. However, when a human or some other animal life enters within 12 feet of 4230, it will then activate its anomalous effect. This effect has been dubbed SCP-4230-1. 4230-1 consists of the complete and total reconstructuring of the victim's body on a cellular level in order to convert them into another snowman similar in appearance to 4230. This process has been noted to be extremely painful, as the body is forcefully transmogrified slowly over the course of a week, in some cases 13 to 15 days. After coming into contact with 4230, the victim will come down with the classic common cold, and no visual changes are seen other than feeling quite cold. On the second day, the victim will experience bouts of dizziness, shed nearly 85% of their body weight, causing them to have the appearance of having severe anorexia and deathly white skin. On the third day, a new chemical is found in the femur and fibula of the current victim as those bones dissolved. The fourth day will yield pain in their lower body due to all of their remaining blood and fat collecting there. At this stage, they will begin to feel their cells bursting, organs shift, and their body breaking down on itself. Acute dehydration sets in. On the fifth day, the skeletal system will begin to crack, break, and splinter in order to take on a more spherical shape, causing great distress as bones pierce the flesh. After 14 minutes, their arms involuntarily raise outward, become immobilized, and undergo calcification. Several researchers asked to be given amnestics to forget what they had seen at this stage, which was granted and they were moved to another site. An unknown liquid begins oozing out of cracked skin and any orifice available, freezing on contact with the skin and transforming into snow. Other than that, the victim becomes blind and is no longer able to move. The 8th day sees the victim dead and is now an instance of 4230-A. The insides of the Snowman contain human flesh and their rounded skeletal system. All D-Class personnel that have been subject to 4230 have begged for death within 2 days, not out of fear of becoming a snowman, but the fear of experiencing pain, as one D-Class put it, worse than the fiery pits of hell could ever offer them. Till this moment, none were granted this grace, and all subjects became instances of SCP-4230-A, body hosts that carry small snow-like eggs that hatch creatures, which then designated as SCP-4230-B. SCP-4230-B instances are extremely hostile organisms, resembling 0.6-meter-tall snowmen with bloodied eyes similar in design and identical in function to those of an insect. They are capable of motion and have shown the capability to hunt in packs in order to take down bigger prey. They have been shown to be exclusively carnivorous, hungrily devouring all D-Class and animals thrown into their containment area. One silver lining to these monstrosities is that they will melt and fade from existence after a single day, and do not naturally melt until that point in time. In order for the Foundation to keep the 4230-B population in check, instances of 4230-A are to be neutralized so that the population of 4230-B stays below 20. Should 4230-B instances reach above 20, MTF Delta 14 or Winter Wonderland will be dispatched to deal with the threat. Similar to the creepy crawlies, they are outfitted with flamethrowers and incendiary grenades. However, as the task force found out in an incident, fire does not kill them, only keeps them at bay. They could only hope these creatures would at least feel the pain. During the accident, 37 instances of 4230-B hatched. After 15 seconds, they reached adulthood and promptly broke free from containment. Several researchers and security personnel were quickly overrun and consumed. They ran throughout the site and hunted down in a coordinated fashion. Any security officer foolish enough to discharge their weapons at 4230-B were killed immediately after realizing their bullets had little to no effect at stopping them. A number of survivors, including 3 researchers, 2 security officers, and 3 D-Class locked themselves in an office and sent distress signals to MTF Delta 14 Winter Wonderland. Unfortunately, at that time, most of the members from Delta 14 were either on a mission or KIA after a joint operation helping subdue a rampaging SCP-076 Able. The remaining 4 members were Captain Donovan, Sergeant Rose, and 2 new privates. After arriving, Delta 14 entered the building and were immediately attacked by 3 instances of 4230-B. These creatures were quickly sprayed with flamethrowers, but only deterred slightly. The squad recorded multiple dead bodies with chunks of flesh ripped off and most likely eaten. Organs were draped over furniture and blood-stained the walls. They could hear the scampering of those little demons as they howled, looking for more prey. All right, the survivors are on the 2nd floor. Rose, on me. You 2 stay here and keep our exit clear. Fire seems to do jack against these bastards, so stay out of sight, and do not engage unless you have no choice. They quickly made their way up and encountered several more instances of 4230-B, but managed to force them away with the use of their incendiary weapons. Eventually, they located the office where the survivors were holed up. The only thing is, there's a large pack of 4230-B instances blocking their way. As soon as the 2 were noticed, the pack wailed and rushed towards them. Not wanting to block off the way to the office, Captain Donovan and Sergeant Rose used their modified shotguns to selectively shoot bursts of fire at the ice entities so as not to accidentally burn the place down. This method proved successful. Captain Donovan held them off while Sergeant Rose ordered the survivors to make their way downstairs and out the door with the 2 new recruits. They did as instructed. Sergeant Rose turned to aid his commanding officer, but froze when she saw 34230-Bs fall from the ceiling and sink their teeth into his back, neck, and face. Ah, damn it! They got me! Run! After some brief hesitation, Sergeant Rose turned reluctantly and followed after the survivors. The captain struggled to take out an incendiary grenade off his vest. Let's see how you dirtbags like this. Damn it, I was just about to retire. Guess I'll be going out in a blaze of glory. He pulled the pins off the grenades, created a miniature firestorm, burning all the instances of 4320-B, causing them great pain and slowing them down considerably so that they would cause no further destruction until they dissipated. The mission was considered successful, and Sergeant Rose was promoted to captain.